This Community Update segment is brought to you by Forward Cody, promoting people, jobs, and progress. Small businesses throughout the Bighorn Basin have been hit hard by the government restrictions put in place to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Bruce Morse is the regional director for the Small Business Development Center Network based in Powell. In an interview this week, he had important information to share about how small businesses can receive some financial relief until they are up and fully running again.
Have you had a lot of people get a hold of you, Bruce, in the last few weeks because of the restrictions and small businesses having to close their doors?
Absolutely, Wendy. We've been, quite frankly, swamped with calls and emails and so forth over the last probably three and a half weeks, roughly. Just ever since some of the closures began to happen, some of the public health orders rolled out, and the SBA's loan programs, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, as well as then a week or so ago, the Paycheck Protection Program loan. We've been a lot of folks referred to us for guidance on how to apply for those and so on.
What sorts of businesses really have been contacting you primarily?
It's been really all over the board, honestly. We've had a lot of folks from those, a lot of calls, I should say, from folks who have been forced to close, the restaurants with their reduced level of service, personal care providers like hair salons, tanning folks, gyms, most businesses that were forced to close by government order, essentially. And then a lot of folks who just had to lay people off because of reduced traffic, revenue, that kind of thing. So it's really been all over the board.
And what's the number one advice that you're giving them? What's the number one resource that you're using and that you're telling people to use?
Well, I would say a couple things. The first thing they should do, I think, is if they have an outstanding loan with a lender, they should contact them. I've been in touch with a number of the banks around here, and to a person, all of them are definitely willing to work with their borrowers to modify payments to interest only or defer payments for 3 or 4 months, doing what they can to help people free up a little bit of cash flow. Also utility providers, so the gas and electric service. I know the communities around here have been really good about not forgiving that obligation, but at least deferring it for a while for 3 or 4 months, and then they'll figure out how to whittle away at collecting that later on. Those are a couple things they definitely can do. I would also say to work with landlords if they are a tenant to see if their landlord can help them out in some way. Same thing with vendors. Although we have to be a little careful with some of our vendors in that a lot of them are small businesses themselves, and so we don't want to ask too much of them because that could be a hardship for them as well. So we've got to be a little careful. I think one of the strategies might be to try and stretch that cash as much as possible, and by doing that, see what they can defer and then work with those vendors to get everybody maybe a little bit, maybe not the full amount. People are understanding that cash flow is going to be tight for a while, and since none of us has a crystal ball and knows exactly how long this is all going to last, we don't know how long we need to make that go.
Absolutely. Now, you're not just getting these businesses, small businesses, retail businesses, and things like that. Powell is very agricultural, so is Matitsi. Mm-hmm. And have you been hearing from agricultural growers about concerns that they're having?
I have not heard too much from the ag industry. Honestly, as you drive around the county, the farmers are busy. They're in the fields. They're prepping for summer. In fact, a lot of them have planted already. Unfortunately, you may have seen in the paper or others have read that Bruce has reduced some of their contracts to some degree on the barley this year. So that will affect those barley farmers for sure. Of course, weather is always a little bit of a wild card in the ag industry, as we learned last fall too. So we hope that will cooperate with us this summer and into the fall. But farmers are pretty resilient folks, and they seem to find a way to adapt and get by and make it work.
What have you been hearing from your resources about when some of this relief could come in for small businesses?
Well, there's a couple of things that are available today. And I mentioned one, the economic injury disaster loan, which has been out there now for about a little over 3 weeks probably. Those are direct loans through the SBA, their disaster arm. Now, they've been making disaster loans for a long time. So this isn't really anything new. It's just the scale is unprecedented. Typically, it's more of a geographic issue, a hurricane in the Gulf or a flood in the Midwest or a tornado maybe someplace. So they're affecting maybe 2 or 3 states at a time, not the entire country. So SBA as an organization, they are not a very large government staff, and they're pretty small in the grand scheme of things. So they're really having to hoof it to try and keep up. And again, this has just been unprecedented. So those applications again are online, directly through the SBA. Many people have been confused about this $10,000 grant that they heard about. We all thought that, that was something that was different than the loan itself, when technically they're part of the same process. You apply for the loan, and as a piece of that, you say, hey, please send me this advance portion so I can hopefully get by for a little while. That rollout has not been as smooth as the SBA had hoped either. Unfortunately, there's been a few hiccups there, and the timing has not been quite as fast as people would like. They're just encouraging having some patience. Again, this is just they're processing hundreds of thousands of applications for these loans, so it's just going to take a while. They had said initially that those initial grants would come out within 3 days to a week-ish. That's taking longer. Right now, we understand that's probably a week to 10 days, and to hear from an actual SBA lender in terms of the actual loan itself, negotiating those terms and whatnot, it'd be 6 to 8 weeks. So it's not going to be fast, unfortunately.
That is very good information. I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people have had. What are some of the other frequently asked questions that you've been getting, Bruce?
Mostly just about the application process. The second available opportunity is the Paycheck Protection Loan, which just rolled out a week or so ago. And that is administered through our local lenders. So those that are participating in the SBA programs can put those in place for us. Real short, simple application. You just have to provide some payroll information, because that is what is used to calculate the loan amount. So it's 2.5 times average monthly payroll. And the banks are each one sort of using a little bit of a different calculation as to how they come up with average monthly payroll, especially for those sole proprietors and independent contractor types. That gets a little bit fuzzy. It's not nice and clean. We don't have a straight salary every month that they're drawing. So there's a couple extra steps that has to happen there. But I encourage folks to work with their local lender if they're interested in checking out that program. I will give you a couple of resources too that are great for people to get the most up-to-date information.
Please, yes.
Our website, the Small Business Development Center website, so that's wyomingsbdc.org. Also, the SBA's website has great information and is updated constantly as things change, which they seem to be changing quite often, sometimes daily, sometimes more often than that. It's kind of hard to keep up in some ways. Another one is the U.S. Treasury's website, which has a lot of the information on the Paycheck Protection Program. And then folks that belong to industry trade associations, I know many of them are putting out information for their groups, providing webinars, that kind of thing. I sat in on a restaurantowner.com webinar just last week. Great information on things that restaurant owners can do in this environment where they're restricted on what they can do. Some pretty creative things that people have resorted to. So it's kind of impressed with that.
That's fantastic. And then Bruce, finally, what is your contact information so that people, if they've got questions here locally and they want to know more about maybe how the process works, maybe be able to kind of have you walk them through that, how do people get a hold of you, Bruce?
Yeah, we're happy to do that. And the SBA refers a lot of folks our direction to So yeah, my contact information, my phone number is 307-754-2139, or by email at bmorse1@uwyo.edu.
So you're associated with the University of Wyoming then?
University is our host organization. So yeah, we receive funding from the SBA, the Small Business Administration, the Wyoming Business Council, the state's economic development arm, and our host organization, the University of Wyoming.
So you've got lots of resources to direct people to then as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We can draw on a lot of different avenues to provide information, and everybody's situation is a little bit different, right? So there's no right or wrong way to approach this. We just sit down and talk to folks, and I'll sit down virtually now. We're like everybody else. We're working remotely, so yeah. But actually, it works pretty well by phone and computer. We can do a lot and still get the information out to people in a time.
That's perfect. Bruce Morse, thank you so much for talking with us today, and we are grateful for that information.
Thanks for tuning in to another community update. Forward Cody thanks you for caring about your community. For information about how Forward Cody can help your business, call James Klessens at 307-587-3136 or visit forwardcody.com.